This isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't rush to impress you. This is slow, honest, and meant only for one heart yours. I didn't prepare this to be perfect. I prepared it to be true. Because when something comes from love, it doesn't need decoration. It just needs courage. Tonight isn't about grand promises or rehearsed words. It's about a feeling that showed up quietly and refused to leave. You weren't expecting this. That's the beauty of it. Love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives gently, like a pause in the noise of the world, and suddenly everything feels clearer. That's what this is. A moment set aside, a breath taken just for you. This surprise isn't wrapped in extravagance. It's wrapped in intention, in presence. In the simple truth that out of all the directions life could have taken me, my heart stopped right here, thinking of you. So listen, not with your ears, but with the part of you that understands silence, because what I'm about to share wasn't meant for everyone. This is a surprise only for you. This surprise was never meant to arrive with noise. It didn't come with a countdown or a warning. It wasn't designed to interrupt your life, only to step into it quietly, the way real things do. The kind of things that don't demand attention, but somehow hold it. The kind that don't explain themselves right away, because they trust time. That's how love works when it's honest. It doesn't chase the spotlight. It waits patiently, confident in its own weight. I didn't plan this moment the way people plan gestures. There was no strategy behind it, no desire to impress. It came together the way breathing does, naturally, without effort, because when something is true, it doesn't need rehearsal. It just needs space to exist. And somewhere between ordinary days and quiet thoughts, this feeling settled in. It didn't ask permission. It didn't knock loudly. It simply stayed. There are things in life we choose loudly: careers, opinions, directions. And then there are things that choose us in silence. Love is like that. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes as a sense of calm when the world feels heavy. Sometimes it shows up as clarity when everything else feels confused. Sometimes it's just the realization that one person has begun to matter in a way that can't be explained without cheapening it. This surprise exists because love doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't perform. It doesn't measure itself by reactions. It only asks for honesty. And honesty is quiet, it's steady. It doesn't rush ahead of itself. It waits until the moment feels right, then speaks once, clearly, without taking anything back. I didn't want to overwhelm you. I wanted to be present. There's a difference. Overwhelm is about proving something. Presence is about offering yourself without conditions. And love, real love, is built on presence, on showing up fully, without disguises, without armor, without the need to be anything other than what you already are. This is not a grand declaration meant to trap you in expectations. It's not a promise written in the future tense. It's simply a moment that exists now. A moment that says, I see you. Not the version you present to the world, but the one that exists when no one is watching. The one that carries doubts quietly. The one that feels deeply, but rarely says it out loud. People think love needs constant expression, that it has to be spoken again and again or it fades. But the strongest things don't need repetition. They're felt even in silence. They're present even when words stop. And this surprise is built on that understanding, that what matters doesn't need to shout to be real. I didn't choose this feeling because it was easy. I chose it because it was honest. Easy things don't last, honest things do. They stay through uncertainty. They remain steady when excitement fades. They don't depend on perfect conditions. They exist because they're rooted in something deeper than desire. This surprise is not about asking for anything. It's about offering something. Offering time, attention, care. The kind of care that doesn't rush to fix or control. The kind that simply stays close enough to listen, close enough to understand, close enough to be felt. You don't owe this moment anything. You don't owe me anything. Love that demands repayment isn't love. It's a transaction. And this was never meant to be that. It's just a true tale laid gently between two people, without pressure, without expectation, without the need for immediate answers. I know the world teaches us to be cautious, to protect ourselves, to keep things light and detached. And that makes sense. Vulnerability isn't easy, it never has been. But it's also the only place where real connection lives. And this surprise exists because at some point caution felt less important than honesty. There's a kind of courage in being soft in a hard world, in choosing sincerity when indifference feels safer, in caring without guarantees. That courage doesn't look dramatic, it looks calm, it looks steady. It looks like someone standing quietly in their truth, willing to be seen without demanding to be chosen. This moment isn't about defining anything. It's not about labels or outcomes. It's about acknowledging something that already exists, something that grew naturally without force, something that doesn't need to be justified because it didn't come from logic, It came from attention, from noticing, from listening, from caring when it would have been easier not to. Love doesn't begin with possession. It begins with respect, with seeing someone as they are, not as something to claim. And this surprise is rooted in that respect, in the understanding that you are whole on your own, that your presence is a gift, not something owed. I didn't arrive here quickly. This wasn't impulse. It was awareness, a slow realization that kept returning, no matter how life became. A quiet truth that didn't fade with time. If anything, it became clearer, simpler, more grounded. This is what love feels like when it's not trying to prove itself. It feels calm, it feels patient. It feels like standing still and knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be, not because the future is guaranteed, but because the present is honest. I wanted this surprise to feel safe, to feel gentle, to feel like a place you can stand without being pulled in any direction. Love shouldn't feel like pressure. It should feel like space. Space to breathe. Space to choose. Space to be yourself without shrinking or performing. And if you feel nothing at all, that's okay too. This moment doesn't lose its meaning because it wasn't mirrored. Love given freely doesn't disappear when it isn't returned. It simply remains what it was true. But if you do feel something, even quietly, even without words, then this surprise has already done what it was meant to do. It has created a moment of recognition, a pause, a soft awareness that something real has been shared, even if only for a heartbeat. I don't need this to become anything else to validate it. Moments don't need futures to matter. Some of the most meaningful things in life exist briefly and still leave permanent marks. They remind us that sincerity is still possible, that depth still exists, that not everything has to be rushed or consumed. This surprise is an offering of sincerity in a world that often rewards performance. It's a reminder that someone noticed you without trying to own you, that someone chose honesty over convenience, that someone trusted silence more than spectacle, and whatever you do with this moment is entirely yours. Hold it, release it, let it pass through you. There's no right response, there is only truth. And this truth was shared because it deserved to exist, not because it demanded a result. This is what it means when love chooses silently, when it doesn't announce itself with urgency, when it arrives without instructions, when it simply stands in front of you, open, grounded, unguarded, and real. This moment doesn't exist because something was missing. It exists because something was noticed, because presence, real presence, has a way of revealing what noise hides. Most people move through life half aware, divided between what they're doing and what they're thinking about next. They listen to reply, not to understand. They look without really seeing. But presence is different. Presence is when attention becomes care, and care, when it's honest, turns into love without announcing itself. This surprise comes from that place, not from urgency, not from fear of loss, not from the need to secure anything. It comes from staying long enough in one moment to realize it matters, from choosing to be here instead of everywhere else, from understanding that giving someone your full attention without distraction or agenda is one of the rarest forms of devotion left. Being present isn't dramatic. It doesn't show off. It doesn't interrupt. It listens. It notices the pauses between words, the way someone's tone shifts when they're holding something back, the quiet strength it takes to keep going when no one is applauding. Presence sees those things, not because it's searching for them, but because it's not looking away. This surprise isn't built on intensity. It's built on steadiness, on the kind of focus that doesn't flicker when something more exciting appears, on the choice to remain, even when staying requires patience. Presence isn't passive. It's an active decision to value someone's reality as much as your own. I didn't want to arrive in your life like a disturbance. I wanted to arrive like stillness, like something that doesn't demand adjustment, only awareness. Because when someone is truly present, you don't feel pushed or pulled. You feel grounded. You feel seen without being examined. You feel acknowledged without being claimed. Presence doesn't try to fix you. It doesn't rush to change your mood or rewrite your story. It respects the pace of your inner world. It understands that some things unfold slowly, and forcing them only breaks what could have grown naturally. Love rooted in presence doesn't hurry outcomes. It values process. This surprise exists because being present with you felt more important than being impressive, more meaningful than being clever, more honest than being loud. There's a kind of humility in presence. It doesn't place itself above or below on. It meets you where you are and stays there without judgment. In a world that constantly pulls attention outward, choosing to focus inward toward one person is an act of intention. It means resisting distraction. It means saying no to noise. It means understanding that depth is more valuable than reach. Presence doesn't multiply itself. It concentrates. I didn't want this to feel like something you had to respond to quickly. Presence doesn't rush reactions. It allows space for feelings to surface on their own time. It trusts that what's real doesn't need to be forced into clarity immediately. Some truths need quiet to be recognized. This moment is built on listening, on hearing not just what you say, but what you don't, on recognizing when silence is comfort, not distance, on knowing that sometimes the most supportive thing you can offer is simply staying without trying to fill the space with solutions or explanations. Presence is consistency without possession. It's reliability without control. It's showing up without keeping score. And that's where love becomes safe. Not exciting in a volatile way, but calm in a grounding way. The kind of calm that lets someone be themselves without preparing defenses. This surprise is not meant to pull you into anything. It's meant to meet you exactly where you are. Because presence respects autonomy. It doesn't corner. It doesn't pressure. It understands that choice only has meaning when it's free. I've learned that attention is the most honest currency we have. You can say anything, promise anything, plan anything. But where your attention rests over time is where your truth lives. And mine kept returning here, not because it was demanded, but because it felt right. Presence notices small things. The way a moment changes when someone enters a room. The way conversation softens when trust begins to form. The way time behaves differently when you're not trying to escape it. These details don't scream for recognition. They wait quietly for someone patient enough to see them. His surprise is an acknowledgement of those small things. Of the unspoken understanding that grew without instruction, of the ease that doesn't need explanation, of the familiarity that doesn't come from repetition but from resonance. I didn't want to give you something that would fade once the moment passed. I wanted to give you something that felt solid while it was happening. Presence doesn't try to be remembered, it tries to be real. And reality, even when brief, leaves a mark. There's a difference between being around someone and being with them. Being around is physical, being with is intentional. This moment comes from being with, from choosing connection over convenience, from allowing focus to deepen instead of scatter. Presence also knows when to be quiet. It doesn't fill every pause with reassurance. It trusts silence. It understands that silence can be a form of closeness when it isn't used as distance. This surprise holds that silence gently, without fear. I don't want you to feel watched. I want you to feel accompanied. Presence walks beside, not ahead and not behind. It doesn't lead you somewhere you didn't choose. It simply matches your pace. This isn't about intensity that burns fast and disappears. It's about awareness that stays steady. Awareness that doesn't depend on constant stimulation. Awareness that finds meaning in simplicity. Being present also means accepting uncertainty. Not everything needs to be defined right away. Not every feeling needs to be categorized. Presence allows things to exist before they're understood. It gives emotion room to breathe. This surprise was shaped by that acceptance, by the understanding that connection doesn't need immediate direction to be valid, that a shared moment can stand on its own without being justified by what comes next. I didn't want to arrive with expectations wrapped in affection. I wanted to arrive with openness wrapped in respect. Presence doesn't barter. It doesn't give to receive. It gives because giving feels aligned. If you sense calm in this moment, that's intentional. Love grounded in presence doesn't create anxiety. It doesn't keep you guessing where you stand. It doesn't disappear to create desire. It stays visible, steady, and clear. This surprise isn't an interruption to your life. It's a pause within it. A brief, still point where attention rests fully in one place, where the world softens around the edges, not because it's gone, but because it's no longer competing. Presence doesn't try to be unforgettable. It simply tries to be honest. And honesty has a way of lingering without effort. I wanted this moment to feel like something you could step into without losing yourself. Something that doesn't ask you to perform or adjust or become more than you are. Presence meets you as you are and finds that sufficient. This is what devotion looks like when it's quiet, when it's grounded, when it doesn't need to announce itself to feel real. It looks like attention given easily, without urgency, without demand, without fear of silence. And if all this moment does is exist briefly and pass, it will still have been complete, because presence isn't measured by duration. It's measured by depth, by how fully it was inhabited while it was here, by the honesty it carried without trying to turn itself into something else.